And now for something completely different.
Why aren't they showing up? Oh, I had to hide that.
Boomer, right off the start.
Works. I know. Booming. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever the case may be. Welcome to Nerds of the Round Table. You are on Blacklist Universe. Before you do anything, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff, and then send me money somehow. Anyways, tonight we will be discussing Joker, the movie. So if you don't want spoilers, bye.
Yeah, sorry.
Spoiler alert, he becomes the Joker.
It's been 3 weeks, okay.
All right, with me tonight, once again, my co-host, Quarter Black Garrett. Garrett, introduce yourself.
I'm Quarter Black Garrett. I come on this show. You guys know me.
All right, then. Thank you, Garrett. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Below him, writer, director, Marcus Dunstan. Marcus, toot your own horn.
Oh, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here amongst you guys. And Mike, it has been many years, and I am still haunted, thrilled, and eager to be a part of your work. Here we go. Day one.
And below me, but not beneath me, Jack Posobiec. Pronounce your last name. Posobiec, right?
Posobiec.
Posobiec. All right, Posobiec.
I just Poso for sure.
Poso. And behind him, you can see his book, which is on Indiegogo right now, Agent Poso. Check it out, checkitouters. I'll put the link in the description, perhaps sometime during the show, but if not, then after. Welcome, one and all. Jack, introduce yourself other than what I've already said.
Well, I don't know exactly what you said. Actually, what a lot of people don't understand about me is that I've actually been going on a fake name for all these years on Twitter. Actually, my real name is, of course, Pierre Delecto, and I've been using an alternate Twitter account known as Jack Posobiec for all this time. I'm sorry that today I'm going to have to reveal myself and come before you both naked spiritually and physically.
Oh, well, that's sad. I wanted the other guy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right.
That's too bad.
Well, I was having a nice conversation with Marcus earlier about the Joker. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing a Joker breakdown show. Like, subscribe, share. Spoiler alert. And Marcus had some very interesting things to say. So I'm like, Marcus, you have to come on today.
Isn't it so nice that we have a movie that sparks conversation?
Yeah.
And this is one that does on many, many different levels. So every one of us was introduced to this character as a kid, and now it's as if a movie is willing to tell us another story from a point of view of adulthood to an adult. Now that we know all the ruses of childhood are gone, here's what people really are. They're not all good. They're not all bad. Sometimes life just aims for your heart and doesn't start punching until it gets you down.
Yeah. What I felt about the character is that he was a character who was intrinsically evil, and whether or not that was because of the trauma of his youth, it made him miserable trying to be good. And as you peel back the layers over the course of the story, he gets more and more happy. And when he finally gets to that point where, like, my life is a comedy. I've been looking at it wrong this whole time. That's when he becomes a truly happy person, bringing death and destruction to all around.
In his notebook, he wrote down, people expect you to act a certain way as if you're not. Yeah, people want you to act normal as if you aren't. So I mean, that he's not normal. He's got this whole different point of view on the world and everybody else, and he's kind of like, I'm trying to be nice, but you guys aren't being nice, and why aren't you guys being nice? Because I'm trying. And then he just gives up trying, and then he becomes, a full-fledged Joker.
There's actually a line in it that in the movie that stuck with me, and on further reflection, I go back to it. It's when he's talking to his mother, and he says, Mom, you told me that my laugh, and throughout the film, again, we're in spoiler mode. He has this, the way they kind of do the Joker laugh, they bring it up and they say, it's this, this neurological disorder that he has. So I have a disorder, it just makes me laugh. I have a disorder that makes me laugh. And he says, Mom, you used to always tell me to stifle this and to say that it was a disorder, but now I'm starting to think that maybe that's actually me.
Yeah.
And hiding it is what has made him miserable his whole
Right.
life.
And so instead of trying to squelch the laughter, embrace it.
Well, and you can see towards the end, whenever he lets go, he's not as holding back. He's not laughing because he doesn't want to laugh. He's laughing because he wants to laugh, and he seems more relaxed in his own skin because he has released all those burdens. Like he stopped taking his medication that's holding his personality down. He stopped doing all these things that he thinks are what normal people do, and he's kind of become the actual Joker by the end, and you can see how he's more comfortable that way.
Does he actually have any more fits of laughter after he lets go?
He laughs, but he doesn't have that fit.
He's got 3 different laughs. He's got the uncontrollable crazy laugh. He's got the fake laugh where he laughs when people want him to laugh. And then he's got his true laughter, which is when he's really embracing his true nature. Marcus, what are your thoughts here?
It was the painting of the smile. I think that's, and it's the one we don't get to hear that big, meaning it's not mixed for the surround sound, but it's when the world has caught up to him, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's when he goes quiet, and the laugh, is really, the joke's on us.
Yeah, I think the last moment of his uncontrollable laughter is after, and what I truly believe, I think he went in there and he killed his neighbor and her daughter, right?
Oh, yeah, that's
because otherwise that whole buildup of that scene doesn't make any sense at all.
When that's the last time you see them, they're gone.
Yeah, and then he comes into his room and he's in his underwear and he's just laughing that uncontrollable, sad but hysterical laughter.
That was the last bit of his perceived reality that he was going on in his mind. Like he was in the show, and the show host was saying how he appreciated him and how he'd take it all away for a son like him. And then he had the girl that he thought was his, but he was like just imagining all this stuff and all these situations. And that was the last straw of his perceived reality that he was trying to put in his own mind, saying, I'm normal. These things are normal. Last bit falling apart. What?
I wonder, because at some point in that area, he stopped taking his medication.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was the medication giving him the hallucinations to begin with.
Oh. That's a good point.
Deep.
I never thought about that.
That's brazen.
Yeah, they actually make like healthcare and public healthcare for those with mental disorders and that are obviously can't afford it. A big part of the film, and something that I don't think gets touched on a lot, but at one point when he's going to the Arkham, it's not an asylum, it's the psychiatric institute now, and he's sort of asking them, hey, how do I get in here?
This place looks nice.
How exactly does one get in here?
Medicine for me, and the guy's like, hey man, I just work here.
I really like that guy too. That guy was so nice.
He's great.
Everybody knows what it's like being that guy, where you're just working a job. And
and
you want to help them, but you're like, I'm not the guy.
You're like, I just work here, man.
Yeah.
An interesting point that my brother brought up the second time we both watched it was thinking maybe at the end, again, spoiler, at the very end, whenever he's having a conversation with that second therapist, that all of the previous movie was him reimagining his own past and telling her, or even just thinking about it to himself. And if you look, the clock in that room and the clock in the room of the first therapist are the same time. They're set at the same time. Yeah. So I'm thinking that maybe this is all a delusion on his own past. And this is where I want it to go. This is actually present day.
Except then that doesn't make any of the events that happen it doesn't make any of the real world events actually happen.
One of the visual clues that I've seen people point out for that is the fact that when he goes, as I just mentioned, when he's at the asylum, I keep wanting to say asylum, it's not asylum, but when he goes to Arkham the first time, it's those like yellowed out, like old decaying walls. But in the final scene, it's that bright white hallway. So it's supposedly the same place, but again, which one is the real one, which one is not.
Yeah.
And Todd Phillips kind of mentioned this in one of the interviews, and he said, look, I'm just using unreliable narrator. It's up to the viewer to really decide,
Figure it out,
which one you choose. And you could choose to believe that all of it's real, or some of it, or maybe none of it, whatever.
I want to think like most of it is real, but there's definitely elements of it that he's changed, or that he's thinking, he's obviously unreliable. So even to himself, and he said that in the comics before, I prefer my past to be multiple choice. So even to himself, he is like, oh, is this how my past was? I don't know. Some of these things are real. I definitely I'm saying, what if there's a new Batman series coming out, directed by the guy that's directed the Planet of the Apes movies, right? And what if that set current day, or even like in the 90s or something? I don't know. And this Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, at this age, is in that time. That's modern day, and the very last scene is in modern day. After Batman, after all this stuff, Joker already knows about Batman, and he may even know that Batman is Bruce Wayne and the death of his parents. So he's thinking, that's his joke he's thinking at the end. Oh, that would be a joke if I was the cause of Bruce Wayne's parents' death. Yeah. That would be funny, but you wouldn't get it. I think that would be interesting. That would be a way for them to bring this Joker that people really like, and they've confirmed that the other Joker by Jared Leto is done. That would be a good way to bring this Joker and establish him in the new Batmans that are coming out. I think they would be moronic if they didn't use this Joker and they tried to set up another Joker.
It's just that this is such a good film all the way around. Marcus, you're a writer director. You have to. I mean, tell me your thoughts on this as a just a piece of art, man.
I think it's absolutely it's a bold choice. I mean, also you've got a big old studio behind this with Warner Brothers, and then the world went ahead and said, you know what, this is the type of story, this is the type of version of entertainment we'll reward with tremendous success. And every step of its execution is a big risk to shake away all the goodwill of success. And in an Oscar winner's part, someone dares step into those shoes again, and wouldn't you know it, it's even more effective because it's more personal, it's more human. It doesn't have it doesn't have the safety of of almost what's the best way to put it, like a softer reality, or even a PG-13. Now people bleed, cut, react. Like there was so much Bernie Getz in the Joker. There was a lot of real, genuine, just anger of folks feeling left behind, hurt, or anger at how mental illness is supposed to be ignored, how homelessness is supposed to be just quarantined to zones where the noise isn't enough to fight back or change anything. And here's this one guy in a sharp red suit that he wears to his mom's funeral, as the trailer would let us believe, but it's not in the movie.
Yeah.
Who then dons the face of just, isn't it funny when people laugh? And it's not funny to people who are stepped on. It's another day, and I'm like, I keep going back. I love how the movie has sparked conversation, and it's the only way to do it is with giant success. And who'd have thunk? Gosh, let me see the summer. After the summer movie season that we've seen, that it would be this intimate, rated R, not a huge budget, but didn't feel lacking in any way.
Right.
Technically bold in the sense of, and I could be wrong, but I was trying to read an article about how its use of spatial distortion and the use of a 65 millimeter presentation, how it kind of just made the actors pop in their environment in a different way, and it was like there was a great psychology to it. And I think at the helm, when you've got Todd Phillips, who is the master of humor, like, my gosh, isn't it amazing that he was able to keep all of these goals on the rails with tremendous photography by Lawrence Shearer and an amazing Joaquin performance. And everybody peppered in there. People are reacting to every morsel of the movie as a reflection of something in their own lives, it would seem. Like there's something that we're all angry, hurt, confused about. We've had a loved one, a friend that's been up against an impossible moment in their own hearts, lives, minds. And this movie just seems to say, like, hey, We're not just helping pull the wool over a world of fantasy with everything being animated. People get thrown through a brick wall and they don't break anything. No,
Right.
this is like the paper cut hurts us all, and it's a movie told from the paper cut. That's what I really was just finding remarkable the entire time. And then the use of the Gary Glitter song, the Rock and Roll Part 2. I was like, holy cow, what a bold choice. And it's almost as if you know real life history. This movie is so much darker than that kid who's going to sneak in for the first time and be like, oh, isn't that the song I hear at some of the old basketball games? I wonder why they don't play that as much anymore. And the parents holding the popcorn are going to be like, I can never tell my child why this guy's in jail.
Well, it's almost like an allegory for Joker. That song is so upbeat, and it makes you kind of go like, oh, this is awesome. But then if you know the past, you're like, oh, down under, it's very dark.
I don't know what you're talking about. Clue me in.
Just Google it.
Yeah.
No. Like, it's a song that everybody knows. Hey, every single sports event you've ever gone to, pretty much like, I think like at one point it was in 50% of all movie trailers. And it turns out that the guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he was like groping kids, basically.
Yeah, he's a pedophile.
And that's what he goes to jail for, which it was just one of those things where in today's, like hyper meta universe where we have to know every little thing about everything, we took a song that everybody used to enjoy and we have to ruin it with with the they call it Google IQ, the Google IQ of the world today.
So this is like going back to the 80s when nobody knew anything about anybody.
Right.
Well, and if I may, but then like what I thought was what I thought elevated the choice of that song beyond shock value was what Mr. Fleck learned about his own childhood.
Yeah.
He was abused. Oh, here's this anthem by a proposed abuser. I'm going to dance to it. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to unleash in a way no one expects. They expect me to make myself a victim, and you're like, oh my Lord, there's who'd have thunk a DC graphic novel property could have such a profound, wonderful effect on conversation. Like, what would we be talking about if we were talking about like Batman versus Robin or whatever?
Yeah, that's the problem with all of these freaking spectacles we've created is all of these movies are based on properties that should have us talking, right?
Yeah.
Well, or if I may, like just the fact that one of the biggest, most popular mediums to get us into a communal space, the movie theater, shouldn't end in just silence. And next, it's a platform to get ideas across. It's a platform to spark conversation. It's a platform to educate on emotionally and at its baseline a bold expression of art. And I want to attribute the following quote to Paul Thomas Anderson, actually. And it was some, and if I'm wrong, I pre-apologize, but I hang it with me like a bit of a bumper sticker, because I've been a part of movies that people hate. I've been a part of movies that some people like or love or whatnot. But internally, I used to work at Blockbuster Home Video. I used to be an usher at the movie theater. I would change. Yeah, I would change the marquee titles. I had to go in and show up for work, whether it was playing Congo or
we all work in movie theaters.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
We all worked at movie theaters. We should change the name now. Ushers of the Round Table.
There you go. Well, and so did the gentleman who I've been lucky to be friends with, and we are writing with Patrick Melton. We both wore fake tuxedos and paid our bills at the University of Iowa by being ushers, and projectionists. Mm-hmm. So that used to be a profession that you could kind of count on, is working with film and projecting film. And now it's scared off like a little band of hobbits that even still know how to do it. It's bonkers.
It was the magical place.
I digress. Yeah,
I worked at a $1.50 movie theater, so we did all the jobs.
Yeah.
But I loved learning about it that way. If you had a brain wrap, if you had to slice, if you had to fix a cut, if you had to change the bulb, I mean, really,
stop. You're triggering me.
Yeah, well, and if it was and I liked that there was one theater, the Lark, used to switch out titles every 3 or 4 days, depending. They'd be kind of the last run, a little Palace theater, and you could just see more movies. So Melton worked at the Palace, that had first run. So they'd get Independence Day and Twister, but I was at the threeplex in the mall, so I had, Train Spotting, Truth About Cats and Dogs, and Face Off.
Right.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But then to circle back way to the initial, positive of that was I would watch those movies and try to learn different voices of filmmakers, of writers. And you listen to an Aaron Sorkin movie, you listen to a Quentin Tarantino movie, you can listen to a David Mamet movie, and you're hearing equally wonderful voices, different passionate topics. And that leads me to this Paul Thomas Anderson quote, which I believe he said, and it was something to the effect of, I think he was being courted in some version of a conversation to lambast a movie. It's like maybe an easy target movie that for whatever reason wasn't well reviewed, wasn't well received or whatnot. And here's what I loved about how I heard this story
Howard
second, third, fifth hand was...
It was Howard the Duck, wasn't it?
No, it was Avatar.
No. I can't even tell you what the movie was. I don't know. But it was his reaction that I do hold dear. And it's don't you dare tell any movie that it doesn't have a worth in being made, because that's some team's blood, sweat, and tears. And if they weren't out there taking a risk, then the rest of us don't get to take a risk. Mm-hmm. And everything becomes bland, and everything becomes just this baseline guess. So if you
like
don't
everything
have
out right
folks,
now.
Yep. So for example, if you didn't have a movie that took a risk like The King of Comedy, you would not have a movie that hits the home run like The Joker.
Mm.
The King of Comedy has some of the baseline footprints for what The Joker does. Somebody eager to be on a talk show, recognized for comedy, having delusions of being anointed in success, but yet quietly lives with his mom and is fighting off the instability and insecurities of life in a big city that's trying to step on him. Interesting. Then he cut that with Taxi Driver, which had to do all the fighting with the ratings board and all the violence, but was quietly telling the tale of somebody just pushed too far. Yeah. Somebody who's just supposed to sit there, take it, and drive people from A to B. The adulterers, the everybody that was so much worse that was hiring him to stay quiet and go from A to B. Someone who's done with that when they see a victimization they can no longer tolerate. Mm. So the hybrid of those two things, like back then, neither one of those movies opened to $900 million. But now, isn't it neat how someone in the alchemy of that was like, let's take Rupert Pupkin, add a bit of Travis Bickle, take some of these chapters, but we need something. Okay, we'll take this from DC, we'll call it The Joker, and then all of a sudden it comes together, and it results in this. We're sharing time passionately talking about a movie that, regardless of how much we loved it, regardless of how it affected us, like I was really haunted, and I just found it to be a profound mechanism to start talking about things that are just too ignored. Mental health. That's what I want out of this movie. I want someone to come back and make it a priority.
No, I'm really good friends with a couple people who work in the mental health industry, and that was the first. I talked to them last night before we went to see the movie because they'd seen it already, and they were talking about it. It's like no one's talking about how, the bad stuff really started when he went off his meds. It's like, it's like, well, you were on a cocktail. Hey, Mike Oxmall for $5 says the Joker climbs into a fridge at one point. This is a reference to the fact that originally this movie was a Mr. Freeze origin story. That's the first I've heard of that. Anybody know if that's?
I've not heard that.
Yeah, I thought it was just another story called Carnival, and then just adapted it to the Joker.
I've heard that they're thinking about doing a Mr. Freeze standalone now, so maybe that's connected.
They did it pretty well in Gotham.
Wow. Mr. Freeze, huh? I mean, hey,
I think it would be interesting. Kind of like a mad scientist, like go into the psyche of him losing his wife and trying to find a cure and unable to find a cure, and then he it's like a Dr. Frankenstein hybrid thing where he turns himself into a Mr. Freeze. I think it would be interesting.
I always view Mr. Freeze as a tragic figure. I mean, that's
Heart of Ice.
That's part of his Heart of Ice. That's the best part of that character.
Yeah. Well, also he was deemed a villain for not succeeding in his in the goals of his love story.
Yeah,
like that's there was a tragic element to it. There was Bride of Frankenstein, a little bit of that, which was neat. But wouldn't it be neat if the success of the Joker does something which really enjoyed Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse for how it kind of opened the door. Oh yeah, but what if we could be at a time in filmmaking where you can see Boba Fett's got his own TV show, and you've got The Walking Dead in season 10, and you can watch you can still watch a reboot of The People's Court, I'm sure somewhere, but
Night Court.
It be cool?
You're talking about
there
Night Court. It's a reboot.
Oh no.
Remember the good old days when there were only 200 channels and nothing to watch?
Yes. But wouldn't it be cool if it's the movie paradigm where you really got to focus on that 18 to 34 all of a sudden was like, well, the people that started watching at 18 who are now beyond 34, they still want to watch movies just as much as those
They still exist.
Yes. So hey, if I'm old enough to get a beer, I probably am old enough to see and make popular with the group of everybody else. Like if there's 7 billion people on Earth, there's got to be enough to merit telling stories for a rated R, perspective, acknowledging what we grew up with. Like our nostalgia can grow up too.
James Hamilton in the chat points out, I hope we get more of these villain movies. Garrett, was it you last week that postulated the idea of just like going through these villain movies and kind of setting it up before you even bring Batman back into Gotham?
Yeah, I think they totally could. I think this movie sets it a bar pretty high for just storytelling. So if they're gonna keep the bar this high and at least meet it, I'm totally for them going into Two-Face, going into Mr. Freeze, going into a Riddler, and then or maybe just setting up a couple of these and then doing a Batman. Oh my gosh, if they do Clayface, I want Clayface in a movie so bad. You don't even understand. I love that character so much, and they just have not given him anything except for in the Arkham City game. It's amazing. If you have not played Arkham City, go play it. But yeah, I think that would be amazing. I think it would be great.
Right on.
I think it would also be. I mean, there just seems to be enough success going around where you can have something as irreverent and Big Trouble in Little China inspired as Thor Ragnarok with these as well. I mean, there's room for all of it, because sometimes you can see how like the popular opinion being success seems to then usher in a slew of imitations.
Yeah, a bunch of copies
versus more, like, wow, we can do it.
The problem is the priority for these guys when you have 20 cooks in the kitchen is not just to make a great film. They have so many other motives, between merchandising and games and trying to be all things to all people, that they can't just sit down and like do a Joker every time because you're trying to do
well,
the way this one got produced was they were Todd Phillips wants to make this movie, let's give him like $20 million. Let's not give him a whole lot of money, and then maybe that'll scare him away and he won't want to do it. And then Todd Phillips was like, yeah, I'll do it, and he did it for that amount of money. And they're like, oh crap, he's actually going to do it. We didn't expect it. And then he did it, and it was, it's made. How much is it made now? It's like 700 million,
730 something million last time I checked.
It's like in week 3.
Yep.
Take chances.
It's a chord. Yeah.
Take chances.
There's a great story that Todd Phillips was saying about how when he first gave the treatment to Joaquin Phoenix was like, wait, what is this? Is it like a heist movie or something with the Joker? This isn't what you said over the phone at all. And he said, no. That's just what we're telling the studio. So he had created apparently like a fake treatment that they gave to the studio about how it's just a Joker heist movie, and it was pretty basic, like kind of basic bro level of a film. But then he goes, no, we're gonna use this, but we're gonna sneak a real film in with their budget.
Directors need to do that more often, though, I guess.
Because Warner Brothers doesn't want real
internet vernacular. Say he trolled the studio into letting him make a real film.
Yeah. Marcus, have you ever used that kind of that kind of bait and switch, getting a movie made?
I'm not successful enough to pull that off. I pretty much have to deliver exactly what they've ordered.
The studio kept going like, hey, we sell Joker on like pajamas at Target. We can't have like we can't just be like slashing people left and right.
No kidding. Like, holy cow.
Yeah, well, that is the differentiation between this iteration of the Joker and all the others, is that the others, and I think it was your boy Zach who probably mentioned this, all the other Jokers were cool, right? It's like that's part of the thing about the Joker. He's cool. This guy was such a loser, right? And I think he didn't become cool. Actually, okay, he became cool, quote unquote, when he gave. Well,
I'm seeing it.
I'm talking to you guys. What the heck? What is going on with YouTube? Let me refresh.
The F's are everywhere in the chat.
Yeah. Dadgummit, I was enjoying this.
Oh, there we go.
And we're back.
This came back for me.
But I don't know how much of the conversation you missed, but it was great. Sorry.
It was good. I had a lot of great points.
That was amazing. That point, there's no way we're going to be able to retell that story.
No.
Yeah.
No way.
I solved world hunger with that point.
Yeah, and climate change at the same time.
At the same time.
Man,
how dare I?
All lost. Like
we were recording that, right?
In the rain. Like tears in the rain. No bandwidth. No, because we were still talking here, and everybody's
confused. Yeah, that was weird.
I don't know what was going on. Anyways, what the heck were we talking about? Joker.
I don't know.
Well, it was also the depiction of Gotham. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the depiction of Gotham in this film, and just how it was the first time I've really felt like this is freaking Gotham, the kind of Gotham that would have spawned Batman.
Yeah,
right.
The Dark Knight Gotham was very clean, well lit, not a whole lot of bad guys, except for in Batman Begins. That one was kind of dark, but then in The Dark Knight and in Dark Knight Rises, everything was well lit and clean. It's like, I need some trash. And this movie opens with there's a trash, the trash guys aren't going to pick up the trash anymore, so there's just piling and piling. So it's like, this is Gotham.
But also, it was true. It was all based on true stories and true events of the
New York,
of the strikes that were going on, and a city in revolt of its own standards, and the delineations and the people being held down, pushed down, ignored, and those who were trying to exalt themselves to literally live above them and never have to touch the street. It's kind of like, it reminded me of a bit of a documentary in a book about how dangerous it was when they were just shooting the early seasons of Saturday Night Live, and the cast members where they had to walk home at night. It felt like this was an interpretation of some of that. So they go into this room, they sing and dance, and they're almost like exploding with what could be the last optimistic moment going on. And then, sure enough, New York caught up and started to, I guess, take action to get a little safer and still a broken window theory effect. And it's it's like the movie's a big warning for, we've crossed the line before. We let our people down, and now there are consequences.
It's sort of an interesting flip flop of when Gotham was renamed, it was New York, right? I mean, back in the day, Gotham was the placeholder name for New York, and Metropolis, this shining city on a hill, was Chicago. And nowadays, you can absolutely flip Chicago and New York.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I was walking around New York at 2 a.m. and I felt pretty safe. I didn't see anybody shady.
Yep.
Chicago. Oh no.
Well, exactly.
You get Jesse Smollett out
it's
there.
like anywhere. Oh.
Joker country.
Yeah.
Huge Ass had a super chat. Hey, could you guys, the moderator, put Jack's Agent Poso into the chat, please? Hugh says Joker sucked. This is a reference to Clayface, and he gives us a poo emoji. Thanks for the $2, Hugh. You're really on point there with your critique.
No. I think that's the Clayface emoji. I think that's the Clayface emoji.
Oh, is that I got you.
Gotcha.
Huge ass. Come on. I just like to say huge ass. Sorry.
OP Dog says there are enough metaphor and symbolisms in Joker to write a book on the movie. All right, who's going to do that?
I'm illiterate, so.
Well, I mean, it's true. It's just
Yeah.
there's the conversation. Like, yes, that's true.
Just transcribe this chat and market it.
Yep. Aren't we lucky to have the opportunity to do something about what we're feeling? If we're feeling that, you know, someone we love is being taken advantage of, broken or whatnot, you know, this seems to be a rally cry to look out. And there was this one thing I saw the other day, and it was about confrontation 101. You know, you're the person that you're in, like, say it's the fender bender, and all of a sudden you're thinking you're going to go off on this other person, they're going to go off on you. Their whole life is this long. The moment of the fender bender is this moment right here. What you don't know about anybody and their trauma, their deal, it's like, man, understand, figure it out. Like, that's why I love that. What I just thought was just so galvanizing was talking about how to help the broken, how to be there, not ignore, not push, not hurt. But
so one of the points that you just made there, and that Mike made earlier about the healthcare industry, is that what a lot of people understand at the United States and Canada, the public healthcare infrastructure was really broken down in the 70s, 80s, into 90s. And you can actually look at the watershed moment of this in public opinion for these
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Asylums was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that movie came out, and that was sort of like just shifted public opinion completely against these things, because there had always been stories that, like, anecdotally or like a story here, story there, but that was the end of it. And so you got these like bleeding heart types saying, oh, we need to shut these horrible places down. And then you get cheapskate politicians who say, oh, great, we don't have to spend money on something. Awesome. And then, you know, of course, that's like not a Republican or Democrat thing. That's just a politician thing, right? To spend more money on other crap. And so I remember my dad actually worked in a mental institution for about 30 years. His mom did before him in outside of Philadelphia, where we grew up. And I remember when they were going in and shutting down most of the facility, and they were consolidating other ones in the area at first, they were shutting it down. And I remember saying, so Dad, quick question, what's going on with all the crazy people? Are they gonna, you know, and this is me at like
where are they gonna go?
8 years old asking the question, but just sort of a kind of a numbers game. Well, if you only had 100 beds left and you used to have 1,000 beds, what happened to the 900 people, right? And he said, oh, well, we're told to refer to them as graduates.
Oh,
man.
So
exactly what happened in this movie. You know, they cut funding.
That's right.
The community. And so what I was wondering is, and I've spoken to a few other people that are social workers after this film, and I'm trying to get one of them to write, you know, an essay about this, is wouldn't it be kind of crazy if Joker becomes the opposite of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in terms of getting people to realize that, hey, maybe we should care about these people that for one reason or another have trouble taking care of themselves, and that we as a society should do better for them instead of just overlooking them and you know, pushing them down and calling them losers.
I mean, I think you run into just sort of a freedom issue. And I mean, you guys can take this for what you want, but we here in San Diego, we have a building set up for the homeless. It cost the city, I don't remember, $10 million or something like that. And it was built out of these tiny little apartments that homeless people could come and live in as long as they were willing to look for a job and stay off of drugs, right? And they spent all this money, all this infrastructure, hired all these people. It's empty because none of the homeless people in San Diego, at least in downtown San Diego, want to look for a job or stay off of drugs. And you know that the drug problem is a whole another can of worms. But you have to get from a place of these people may not be voluntarily on the street, but they're voluntarily not willing to make tough decisions to better their lives. And yeah, these are people. I mean, becomes a freedom issue, right? Are you gonna involuntarily take these people and put them in a housing thing so that you know you can better their lives, but at the cost of their own choices? I don't know. I don't have an answer for it. I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
Well, one thing to, I think, be gentle of is it's not a whole group. You know, it's sometimes it's families that have just had the rug pulled out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is a mental health issue. Sometimes it is something narcotic based, perhaps. Sometimes it's something we don't
Caveat, the
know.
building's not completely empty. I'm just saying they've got a lot of room. There are some people who are willing to, you know, they're just in those circumstances. But I mean, my nephew has been homeless for years because I gave him every chance in the world. I let him live with me. I'm like, you know, all you have to do is go to school, get a job, volunteer someplace, and you can continue living here. And he's just like, no, I'd rather go live on the street. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I know people like that.
Yeah.
So I think having those options available for people that do is very important. You know, have it available. Be like, hey, we got these things. If you want to clean up your stuff, we have it available for you. But if you don't, you know, hey, that's your choice.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to solve it here talking about the Joker, but
yeah, you got to watch out because they'll all turn into
what Marcus was saying,
clowns.
That, like, here we have this great piece of art that's also political in a sense, and we're talking about it because of a film and because of some of the questions that the film was brought up about our society. I mean, compare that to, I don't know, anything else that's made these days. Then you finish it and you're like, consume.
Endgame, right? Endgame is supposed to be the best comic book movie of all time. Whenever I walked out of it, I didn't talk about it. I was like, okay.
It was not very thought-provoking.
You know, I was like, oh, that was kind of cool whenever,
Tony
Stark did that thing.
The other guys, and then the movie ended.
You talk about it for, 20 minutes after the movie came out, and then you don't think about it ever again. But this is like, we're like, what does it mean? I'm going to go watch it again. I gotta go watch it again because I got to try to figure out all the stuff in the background. And, it like you said before, Marcus, it's something that is good. I feel like we've been so depraved of movies that they've just been so lackluster and flat and lifeless that the second something that is just halfway decent steps in our movie theater, we're like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. It's a masterpiece. And it's like, oh well, thank God it's good.
I loved Endgame. I saw that movie.
I liked it too.
But it was but I also thought it achieved something unique for the four of us here and anybody that went to see Iron Man, for example. It was 10 years of our lives, and then
I'm not saying it's bad.
Spoiler. Well, exactly, but that was a different form, and it cast a very wide net. When it says PG-13, you're casting a global net. And I thought it was remarkable for what it achieved in that space. But then to kind of curtail into that, it's like, all right, well, I've been on that 10-year journey, and wow, the satiation of the other ideas and the putting something else through a rated R aquifer was really, I just found inspiring for, wow, we can push and we can tell adult stories through this nostalgia. That's also an inspiring point. Like next time, if we dare,
going to come head to head too, between Endgame and between Joker, though, and even if we we can all agree that they are certainly different animals,
sure.
But it's they're going to come head to head in Oscar time, and we know that Disney has been going around Hollywood. And they're already trying to get people on the bandwagon. They're trying to recruit folks. They want Oscars for Endgame. And they thought that they were going to clean up. And then along comes Todd Phillips.
Joker comes dancing in.
And suddenly just create something that's totally from a different universe in more ways than one. And now suddenly there's going to end up being this competition, whether we want to or not.
And that's what we need. We need competition. That's not... My problem with what DC has been doing is they've been just chasing Marvel. I like Marvel
before this.
I like Marvel for what it's doing, and I love DC for what it just did. But what it's been doing for a little while has just been trying to copy what Marvel's doing poorly. They've been doing it very poorly.
Well, they were trying to jump ahead to the Avengers movie without doing a real
setting up.
setup of all the other
Right.
stuff. And I mean, not to talk about DC, because most of their movies I couldn't stand, except for Wonder Woman and Shazam and Aquaman.
Correct.
Which none of them were perfect films, but
Yeah, correct.
Joker is.
No, Wonder Woman was great.
Those are the three best for sure.
Oh,
To the point,
you guys just hate Captain Marvel because she's a woman. I'm like, what if we all love Wonder Woman because it was a great movie?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But the thing is that, like, with Joker, I kind of would have to go back and compare it more along the lines with the first Iron Man movie, because origin stories where you have that hero's journey, that changing of the basic core of the character into something new, that chrysalis moment, whatever you want to call it. I think those are maybe not easier, but they tend to have an easier way to have that emotional response than you do when you've set up 10 years of knowing all these characters and they're just going through a journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not
each
journey.
person. Which I think it's Marvel's got their formula, which works. They've got their bad guy and a setup, every one of them, but then it eventually becomes kind of formulaic and bland. I like that this one kind of stepped out of that and was like, look, we're going to tell an origin story about one character, and it's going to go into his mind, and we're going to follow that one character. There's not a villain. There's no big beam in the sky that's going to destroy that. It's just one guy and his problem going through life. And I think there's space for both of those stories. I think there should be, and I like that there is competition, and I think maybe it'll make Marvel go, hey, maybe we'll pick a different character in our world and kind of flesh them out. Like maybe they take a little bit more character focus whenever they do the Blade movie. They go, oh, well, how did he become? Why did he decide to become Blade? And focus a little bit more on his character and not do the overarching, big story. So maybe it'll create this little back and forth, and then going, okay, well, hey, wait, this is good.
More intimate story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric Charles Ash in the chat says, are we done with the Joker breakdown already? Laughable. Hey, Eric, if you've got points you want to bring up for us to discuss, by all means, you're all welcome to.
Was that a pun? Was he saying it funny?
I get it.
Laughable.
What are your favorite adaptations from a graphic novel all time?
Probably 300.
300? Okay, great.
I know people hate it, but I like the Watchmen movie a lot. I know the ending's all messed up, but I love the Watchmen movie. It came out whenever I was like 17, so it was like perfect age.
Has anyone seen the new Watchmen yet?
I've heard it's bad. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
I heard it was great, but then But what I do like is, like, I guess a lot of people saw it, so hey, we get to see. I'd go with The Crow. That's the one I saw 22 times.
Peter.
It was well, but how about this?
Yeah,
so far, and did I hear someone say Spawn?
It's been in the news lately, and I'll throw it out.
But I actually thought someone said Spawn. I don't know, but hey,
That was not me.
Jack, did you
Okay,
say?
gotcha.
I'll throw out the first Kingsman movie. Second one, not so much, but the first one I thought was very well done.
I didn't read the.
So all four of us said a rated R movie.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That's not rated R. That was a
No, it's
great
not.
adaptation.
No, that's not rated R.
Yeah.
Marcus only makes rated R movies, just so you.
He's like, I'm just
no.
going for 13 here.
I was part of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was the one that was important because we shared a story by credit on that one, but its genesis was always to try to be the scariest, most intense thing in that PG-13 realm, But sometimes, as a mechanism, scaring and whatnot is fun. You just get a little wider berth in the rated R world. You can just kind of go for it. However, if you can achieve that same effect with a rating of G, like I can't believe what Jaws was PG. Good Lord.
Yeah,
Like
but
a
it was
kid
the
getting mulched.
70s. It was the 70s. PG in the 70s was PG-13 was still in that category, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, like G
Okay.
doesn't even exist anymore.
What was the last G? One of the last G movies, intentionally so. I want to say, didn't David Lynch make one about the gentleman who rode his riding lawnmower across America? Like, it's possible. We can get there.
Hmm.
Like
All those
even
stories
Mr.
could be
Rogers
universal.
movie is going to be PG.
There's a good point.
Well, it should be, right? I mean, do we really need a rated R Mr. Rogers movie? No.
I want to tell the real story.
Yes.
No. Yeah. I don't.
I want to
don't
see
wanna
his
go
Vietnam
there.
action.
Roll those sweater sleeves
Yeah.
up and show us the tattoos.
Yeah, where he gets all the
You know,
tattoos.
Kill count.
Roxham points out Guardians of the
Yes.
Galaxy 1 was a great movie. It was,
Yeah.
however,
It was.
it was not an adaptation of anything I think they actually wrote in the comics, was it? Because that
No,
comic
that's actually
sucked.
come out.
That movie was great in the
The
comic
original
before.
comic had like nothing to do with that movie
Yeah.
as it made.
So it's just
Yeah.
taking a name and taking some characters and
Right.
Yeah.
Making their own thing.
that's why I say 300 because I thought it was pretty close to the book and
Yeah. Spot on.
Oh, it
Zack
was
Snyder.
such a cool experiment. Like, just like, wow. Oh yeah, and two, Zack Snyder. I mean, man, he's a visionary. I just like what he did and how he kind of recontextualized the big feel movie was just wonderful. And his okay, I was an adamant defender and crusader for George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. It was the first unrated movie, and it had a 4-star review by Roger Ebert, and I felt I could defend this. And it was on two different levels. It was about consumerism, and it was also an exciting horror movie. And I thought, my goodness, how could this possibly be remade to any form of success? And then Zack Snyder did it, and it was awesome. And there's Tom Savini, and there's other returning cast like in there, and acknowledging it and taking a new stance and telling us a new multi-layered parable for our times when it came out. So I love that it knew it to succeed. It knew it had to just tell a few more complicated layers of, vantage point, emotional, what sort of storytelling that isn't just in the printed page, but also something that speaks to a larger ongoing human story, which was really, really exciting.
I definitely like Zack Snyder's early career a lot better than his later career so far. The last few movies he's made have been great. Yeah, Batman vs Superman, not great, but
visually,
300 was great. Visually,
visually
if he would get in like a partnership with a director that knows how to tell a story with characters.
This is the problem I have.
If he could just do that, the visuals, just do that.
Yeah. This is the problem I have with Quentin Tarantino. I think Quentin Tarantino is one of the best dialoguists in
Quentin Tarantino
in the industry.
Zack Snyder.
And I'm saying that I don't think Quentin Tarantino is good at telling a complete cohesive story, but I think he does individual scenes that are just
really well
phenomenal. Yeah. I think his dialogue is always on point, but it's just, can you get me from A to B in a way that I enjoy? Right? I mean, I think
the first time that
like 3 or 4 climaxes, and I was just bored after the second one.
Like, all right, okay.
You know,
that was actually the only one of the first ones I actually liked. That was Quentin Tarantino. Was Django.
Oh, really?
I didn't. Yeah, I like Django.
I
quit this show, I guess.
Marcus, you love Quentin Tarantino, right?
Well, when you mentioned, is there the one that gets from A to B? I can think of many. Did you ever see his episodes of CSI,
No.
Grave Danger? Oh, well, there you go. That's just one example. But I think there's many along the way.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the movies. Reservoir Dogs is one of my all-time favorite movies, but it's because he stole the plot from City on Fire, right? And it's like Carl Masek taking all the scenes from Robotech and rewriting the story. It was fantastic, and I love it. And yeah, I mean, it was like I showed this movie to my mother-in-law when Never mind. That's a whole different story. But
You're like, hey, can I marry your daughter? Also,
yeah.
Reservoir Dogs. I love it. Let's watch it right now.
How attached are you to your ears?
Right.
But no, I just think a lot of, and I like Inglourious Bastards, but that might just be the killing Nazi porn part. But still, I mean, we don't need to derail this into a conversation about that. I was just trying to make the correlation that you can be so excellent at certain parts of your job, but
right.
you're missing one little thing. Right. And yeah, with Zack Snyder, his visually he does these amazing things. But yeah, it just
sometimes
the story
falls apart.
And casting a bunch of people who have zero charisma doesn't really help.
Oh yeah, he's really bad at that too. He keeps doing that. Like just cast somebody that has some kind of charisma that can carry a scene a little bit. Sometimes he gets lucky though. So
hold on, I'm gonna mute this real quick. I'm not muting you guys. You can talk.
Oh, okay.
You
So
is that a landline?
Yeah, that sounded like a landline. What?
I did.
I have a landline. What do you want?
Oh, that is the most boomer thing I've ever seen.
I'm 48 years old. I have to have a landline.
Okay, boomer.
Well, hey, we only got about a minute left, and I'd like to kind of go through and kind of reintroduce you guys. Tell us what you're up to now and what you might be promoting. Jack, you want to start?
Yeah, well, I mean, obvious promotion. We're doing the Agent Poso graphic novel. It's my first ever graphic novel. We just extended the Indiegogo. Set 10 years in the future, and it kind of just takes a look at geopolitics. It's a Mission Impossible kind of team. Takes a look at geopolitics in the future, taking the stories of today, fast forwarding them. So looking at an expanded China, an expanded Turkey, a Europe split between East and West, a U.S.-Mexico demilitarized zone, and all the things that could happen from between now and then.
And how long is this book?
This is just a 32-page book. That's the world building. That's just the world building.
All right. That's a lot of stuff for one book. Sounds good, man. I look forward to it. Marcus.
Well, I was very fortunate, courtesy of a really cool editor I worked with by the name of Andrew Westman, to hook up and direct an episode of Into the Dark for Hulu and Blumhouse, and that premiering that in Austin this Friday. At the Austin
it's my
Film
neck of the
Festival.
woods.
There you go. And I tell you, it was an incredibly fun time in a tone that I hadn't I'd never attempted before. But the way this thing turned out, I'm very excited to see an audience flip to it.
Awesome, man.
So that's what's going on here. Yes.
Fantastic. Garrett, anything new?
I'm always on the show, Louder with Crowder, on Thursdays. Go watch it. I'm on Twitter, and I'm also on YouTube. I don't make videos, but if you want to subscribe just to support me, that's cool. And I'll be here next week on Monday.
Right on. And I am Mike S. Miller. You can I'll put the links for Lone Star, my comic, in the description. I'm still working on that series. Other than that, do like, subscribe, share this out. Let some people know that we do Nerds of the Round Table every week. And hopefully we can have these fine guests back sometime on a future episode. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
And thank you for passionately talking about it. I mean, like, man, the more people who do talking, maybe some people will start doing something, and maybe some folks out there will have a better life.
Yeah.
Right on. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Take care.
Nerd
Bye.
out.